Good evening, everyone, to this last September Tuesday of the year here on Arena STL. Boy, talk about an interesting thing that happened in between these two shows here. Of course, now, as of this moment, Arena Football One is having their meetings here, or as Jerry Kurtz, the CEO of Arena Football One, has termed it, Arena Football University. They're having a conference here in Chicago, Illinois, in which they are like doing the rules and voting on some other things too. Of course, one thing that was kind of interesting about having this thing happen right now, there was a few kind of, let's say, irregularities that happened outside because we all know that they have separated from Arena Football League. And then, of course, if anyone has seen X throughout the whole week, people are asking because what are the potential new teams for Arena Football One, of course, was the previous new team for 2025, the Arizona Bandits. And apparently they had a website with the Arena Football League. I said, uh, pardon, with future updates coming soon, in which the people that own the Arizona Bandits came out and said, that's not our website, this and that. So that was cleared and it was redirected to the white website. Then what's interesting is that the Arena Football League site itself came with coming announcements in 2025 season, which kind of had a lot of us scratching our head here because it wasn't that far that they were basically with Chris Getty and G6 Sports, and everyone just left them because of their incompetence. And as I mentioned here last week on the show, they still owe the owners that are now part Arena Football One about 300 grand for in order to have the Arena Bowl happen. And of course, as people call the brawl at the mall or at the Arena for Arena Bowl, I kind of like the name, but I digress. So it's kind of interesting what that is. Will announcements happen? I don't know, but if any announcements come with now the old Arena Football League with the G6 Sports, you kind of have to raise your eyebrow, if you will, when it comes to that group because what has happened the past year. And it's interesting because I want to talk about, because as I said, right now, Arena Football One, they're having their conference here, and it's from September 23rd to right now and ends after tomorrow. 3 days. And it's good that they're getting this together. It's kind of interesting how both the you see how the difference are because everyone remember last year for the announcement of the rebirth of the Arena Football League in 2023 for the 2024 season. Everyone probably remembers that video of Lee Hunton and a few of the others having like a champagne type of party in Vegas. It's interesting they're having that there rather than what's going on with the conference that's happening in Chicago, Illinois. And I believe it's somewhere, if I remember correctly from someone, it's like somewhere in the Arlington Heights area, actually, but I digress. And you can see the photos off the AF1 social media pages, and it's like they're in a conference room. It's not very big, but it's big enough to have this type of deal when they discuss all this. And interesting information came out, of course, from the latest article by CEO Jerry Kurtz, of course, former AF Arena Football League commissioner by Times Union. And one of the things is that as of right now, they actually have a 12 team basically in the pipeline, or how the saying goes. So the question is, who is that team? Because as I mentioned before, there has been photos of the actual Arizona Bandits owner. And is the 12 team Arizona Bandits or is it somebody else? Because remember, the Billings owner 2 weeks ago announced that there was a possibility of a team from Canada. He said both Mexico and Canada in that one interview I mentioned here before, and it came out to have the team in Mexico. And actually, the team in Mexico actually came out with their logo, the Monterey Kings here. Let me show that here in a moment. It's actually quite nice, actually. Though I'm a little bit kind of surprised. The crown kind of gives like more of a Game of Thrones mixed in. There's some other type of franchise and deal that I'm thinking of here, but I just can't recall what it is. Like I see something that has a Game of Thrones look to it and something else with the crown. So it's actually not a bad logo and it's actually good. And I'm actually interested to see how the arena team in Mexico does here. They have the right people, people that have stuff in the NFL. So it's actually going to be kind of interesting how this goes. Because remember, last year we had 16 teams. Now we have, well, officially now 11. 12, we know that's coming. And then Jerry Kurtz did say in the Times Union article that there's a possibility of having even more teams and maybe even odd number teams. Now, if they do an odd number, because if everyone that has paid attention to other sports football leagues like the CFL, they currently have an odd number of teams. And usually there's one team that is usually having a bye during that time, so the other 8 teams can play against each other because there's only 9 in the CFL right now. So now it's kind of be like, well, if they do that, will there be one team having a bye? Then again, of course, it has been announced that they will have a 12-game week schedule. So it's going to be interesting. Like, is it a bye, or as other arena teams have in the past, they have an opponent that's outside the league, which is not the out of the realm of possibility. So it'll be interesting to see how the schedule goes. And of course, one thing this conference is trying to do is also to finish the expansion part, get that done by the end of the month, because they want to have the schedule out by mid-October. And as I said here in the previous show, it will be hilarious to me if they announce their schedule first before another league does, especially since how the league was formed just recently compared to the other one. I won't mention what the league is, but you kind of get the hint of what I'm talking about here. If the Arena Football 1 league has their schedule out during the spring and another league doesn't. So it's going to be interesting, and I hope it goes well here. And then another thing in the article that Jerry Kurtz mentions is that by October 1st, they want to start signing players, of course. Of course, and they also announced that it will be a 21-man active roster. And one thing that was kind of, they announced the salary here, and the salaries are quite interesting. Previously in Arena Football League, there wasn't really a concrete of how much per game each player gets, but we actually do now, and actually was a grand per game according to the article here. But the thing is, for the Arena Football 1, it's actually a bit lower. It's going to be 400 per game, but hold on, I'll get to the but part here. There's a little bit of a asterisk here. 400 per game, but they also said there's other ways to earn revenue too, and that's like outside of autographs and stuff there, so that depends on the contracts. But one thing that is important here when it comes to arena football, because we all know, if anyone has paid attention to arena football as I have, the horror stories of the players living in certain conditions. Heck, even this previous year we had a team that had a problem with housing their players, and let's not forget with the Arena Football League of actually have to kick out players desperately for the Philadelphia Soul in that horrid situation here. And they have it in their, I guess, in the rules here that the franchises, let me be clear, the franchises, not the league, must provide housing, meals, and also other forms of compensation. So any type of deal there, because it's going to be kind of interesting, like how they announce it, but it's going to be interesting. And one thing that Jerry Kurtz mentioned, because as I mentioned before, when it comes to arena football, there never really has come like a draft type of deal, going in and out type. Like, it's always just free agents and signed free agents here and there. So this was announced by him that after the signing period for the players for the franchises, mostly for the main 8, or the founding 8, as he put it, the newer expansion franchises. So, of course, you got the Wilkes-Barre, you got Stockton, Mexico, and then yeah, those 3, and then you got the 12th team that and the others that still have yet to be official and announced. There is going to be an expansion draft. And usually for expansion drafts, how that goes is that usually the main teams that the expansion teams are able to select, they actually say, okay, you cannot choose these players here, but these players are free reign. Because the most recent example I can think of for an expansion has to be with the National Hockey League, of course, with their newest team with the Seattle Kraken, and then the one before that, the Vegas Golden Knights. It has been a while since any other league has expanded, or at least the pro parts, like the major four. So it's good because the latest one I think there was one after the St. Louis SC, and for MLS I could be wrong. And in this situation, each of the eight founding teams will be able to protect 15 players. Then after those 15 players, because as I said before, the main roster you have up to 21. If each of those eight are able to sell 21 by that time, then they will be able to select the remaining six. And gonna be kind of interesting because it's like like now you wonder who do these teams protect? Mostly you kind of think, well, maybe they'll keep their kicker. Some might, some do, some might even sell two kickers. And the one thing that's interesting, because as I mentioned before, like the one expansion draft example I could tell is when Vegas Golden Knights did, and they kind of had like not really the term of what's the term I'm thinking here? I'll think of it later. They actually had kind of like I guess sort of backroom deals, but legal. And they're like, okay, we'll choose this player here unless you give us these picks here. So it's not going to be that big of a deal when it comes to type of thing when it comes to Arena Football League drafts because it's just like one, and there's like, I doubt because there's no like rounds, like many rounds type of deal. So it's going to be interesting because I doubt they're going to live broadcast this. It's probably going to be more like how like the UFL did. They'll just announce it on social media. Like, here we got this guy here during like a ticking clock type thing. Just announce it on social media. I kind of wish they did a live one. Of course, the last live draft I ever saw for Arena League, and unfortunately, the league came out to a scam. They actually had it on YouTube and actually announced the picks and actually had highlights of the players actually that got selected. I did like that. Maybe they could do something like that. It just depends. So I we'll just have to see how they announce it. And it just I'm just really excited how Arena Football ones you could just tell the differences. Like as I mentioned before, right now they're having a conference right now in a hotel in Chicago. And like remember last year, like I said a thing about the announcement with the Vegas deal with the Arena Football League with Lee Hunt and all that. And as I said before, that video made it kind of showed, I don't know, like fake it till you make it vibes now that you look at it. Like saying they got all this money stuff. Though I kind of wonder how much money from the actual owners for the Arena Football League actually went to that party in Vegas. Though in that video, I don't really recall any Arena Football League owners in that one. Then they had that announcement in New York. Of course, once again, I do have to make this clear because this conference is in Chicago. Does that mean there's going to be a Chicago team? Though, as I said before in the previous episode, there was supposed to be a Chicago Rush franchise in 2025 for Arena Football League, along with the Arizona Bandits because they have their own socials. They had a picture of the owner and stuff. And that social media accounts have just been dead silent for months, like even before the season. So once again, that's probably another Leah Hutton failure there. And one thing that was also mentioned too is like last year with the Arena Football League, they had four divisions. You had East, West, North, Central, that type of deal. Now it looks like they're going to just have two divisions, one East, one West. So it'll be kind of interesting how they have that set up because you got those three Kansas teams in the middle. So you have to think those are probably in the West. And then everything east of that's in the East Division. So we'll just have to see how they announce that as well. Then let's see here. Let me get to my notes here. Oh yes, small note here. The Salina Liberty signed a new offensive D lines coach, Matt Will Sr. A lot of experience, so it's good for them. Uh, and also in this meeting, it's just not the owner; it's also the coaches and the front office personnel. And they're also going to try to finish the rule book within this meeting in Chicago. And we're going to take a little break here because I want to mention something that was found out on this article by Jerry Kurtz. We'll be right back.
Houston, we've triumphed. I've made it back to Earth with the cargo intact. The game-changing, time-sensitive payload is none other than the revolutionary energy flavor we've all been waiting for. Introducing Merc Mayhem Cherry Limeade. Merc Clan played a crucial role in securing this energy flavor, and together we've unlocked the future of power. Merc Mayhem is not just a drink, it's a statement, a fusion of relentless energy and bold flavor. The secret is out. Merc Mayhem is set to redefine the energy landscape, leaving ordinary drinks in its cosmic dust. Get ready for a taste explosion that matches Merc Clan's unparalleled power. Join the revolution, and let's unleash Merc Mayhem upon the world. Astronaut M signing off.
Same great taste. Yes, same great taste. Same great taste.
We're back. Now, one thing that came out of this interview from Times Union from Jerry Kurtz is about the officiating. Because if everyone remembers for Arena Football League, the officiating kind of did get kind of bad because of some rule changes. Because one thing that Jerry Kurtz did mention, and unfortunately I'm a little bit saddened by this, because it doesn't look like they're bringing the Iron Man component back for the Arena Football 1. Maybe a mixture of it, but not full. So I'm a little disappointed that because I did like that whole concept with the Iron Man with the old Arena Football League of having people play on both sides besides the quarterback and the defensive specialist. So disappointed in that, but I can understand it. And the one thing with officials, because in between that, the rules kind of changed because how the hectic during the Arena Football League season. And one thing that Jerry Kurtz has said, one thing we're going to do is get that rule book. And once it's done, we're going to get the officials to have an officials workshop. Because one thing that I'm a little bit surprised, again, from the turmoils that was the Arena Football League 2024, they did not get together with officials to explain the rule book and all that stuff. Let me say that again. They did not have get together with officials to go down with the rule book and all the calls and type of stuff with the rules. So that kind of explained some confusion, some games early on that I saw in the Arena Football League 2024. So now they just want to make sure everything gets like organized and stuff because you could just tell the difference of how organized the Arena Football 1 league is compared to the Arena Football League. And once again, it's like, what the heck is going? How did this happen with Lee Hunt? Because, like I said, last week's episode, it makes sense how hectic was because Chris Getty and G6 Sports, they seemed like they gave it to a guy, just want him to do all the work and put faith in the wrong guy. Then come to find out that both Chris Gotti and G6 and Lee Hutton kind of had a similar things when it comes because once again, last week's episode, they got the only way to have the arena bowl game because it was going to be shut down if the arena didn't get paid because it was a neutral site of 300 grand or to have it, and that came out of the owner's pocket. And they still are owed that money. And as Steve, the owner from the Billings, said in the interview with Arena Insider Anthony Carter, is that they still have not been paid. And they last time they spoke with Chris Getty is with an email asking about payment and has yet to be answered. Man, Arena Football League 2024, looking at it, it just like if it was just run by the right people, it probably would have done a heck of a lot better. But it's just going to be why did this happen? But now moving forward, Arena Football 1, you have Jeff Fisher, you got all the owners with the right people, you got Jerry Kurtz, now the CEO, and now wondering what the next type of announcements are. Because, as I said before, they have a 3 day conference. Heck, I only think the conference with the Arena Football League in New York was only just like that not one night. So, well, wait a minute, hold on, step back a little bit. There was that press thing that happened before the season, though I think that was only a day too, though. That one, looking back, you have to question some things here because it's like a lot of the stuff. There was some like PR people, like reporters and stuff. Remember a few people, and we never saw them during the season. So it's going to be just interesting with more information because we still need to know how many more teams are there because we know there's 12. And Jerry Kurtz, as I said before, said we have one that's already been accepted. And the question is there going to be more? And the final decision of how many teams get accepted is by end of the month, which will be next Monday. And we're already, as you can see, fall has finally kind of centered in some locations, still summer in some. And it's just going to be interesting to see because pretty soon we're going to get all the announcements, of course, like I said, teams. And then by October 1st, the start of players getting signed to these 8 teams. And then hopefully try to figure out. I'm kind of wondering if the expansion draft will happen. Probably will happen after the schedule release in mid October, and we need to figure out what else is going to be coming ahead because as of right now, they still haven't announced their television partners yet, but I still kind of expect, like mostly because of Jeff Fisher, because if anyone watched the Arena Bowl, they talked about still having a partnership with CBS Sports Network and figure out what other networks need to get because remember, Arena Football League was supposed to have games on NFL Network and also local stations too, but once again, that didn't happen because and all the confusion. Lee Hutton told one owner this, one owner that, and not really the true business model because they were basically paying to be on the air and not actually earning any money off any revenue. No ads or anything. They don't get it. It all just goes to the network. Smart business model, Lee. Boy, it's going to be interesting because also we'll probably get more information because, as I said, some owners are going to be filing a lawsuit because Lee Hutton's going to be part of it, and then also G6 and Chris Getty because once again they are still owed 300 grand in order to get that Arena Bowl working and all that. So it's going to be interesting to see what players get signed because I believe, if I remember correctly, the name is kind of falling through me right now, but one of the Orlando Predator, I believe the Orlando Predators quarterback just retired after a 10-year career. I think last name Lane might one of the name has Lane in it, so that had a very good career and good luck to his future, whatever family work and everything. And see what the new age of players and what type of players come to Arena Football One. Because, as I've said before, they're only going to get $400 per game, which for the regular season will be about 4,800. And then, what other ways are they going to try to make money? Because, as I said before, the teams are providing the housing, the meals, and other forms of compensation for these players. And you just have to think like, what are the types of other forms of compensation? It's just going to be quite interesting how this gets set up. We just don't know yet, but there's going to be a lot of announcements here, and I expect by a week from now we'll probably hear about what the 12th team is because you have to think, because the Arizona Bandits owners there, that he is probably one of the teams that are being looked at right now. And what other teams are they thinking about? Because you still got that Canadian team up in the north somewhere, and question is where will it be in Toronto, which would be the obvious choice, or the other ones? Because as I said before, Canada does not have a shortage of arenas. No. Being the hockey capital of the world, there's probably arenas probably 10 to 15 miles of each other for how popular hockey is. And I do recall one thing though, because looking at the possible teams the one of the owners mentioned that. Oh no, not the owners. The football operations guy here. Hold on, where is my notes? I think yeah, Gary Compton. There we go. That's what I meant. Gary mentioned that of the possible locations with the arenas and figuring out the scheduling for Arena Football 1 in 2025. He mentioned that some arenas actually hold graduations at like mostly college, high school, because sometimes even some big schools need like a separate arena because their gym is just not big enough to have all the students, guests, parents, and all that. So when he said that, that kind of reminds you like, hmm, don't I know an arena near me that does do that? And of course, that is the Family Arena in St. Charles, which was supposed to be the home of the Arena Football League St. Louis team, but that got delayed due to renovations and who knows the turmoil that Lee Hutton has done. So it's kind of interesting that they are discussing with these possible reasons that have that type of deal and scheduling out here because usually with those graduation schedule, those are like about I think could last up to 2, maybe even 3 weeks, but it just depends. So it's kind of interesting in what other locations because if you see the current map right now, and that's with the 11 teams right that I put out, this is what it looks like right now, right here. Because you got one, two, because you got kind of those three West teams on an island, the three Kansas team on an island, the Mexico team south, and then of course the two closest team is Albany and Wilkes-Barre. And you just have to think like, what are the other teams they could? Where would they put them? Because I know some people have suggested maybe a team in Georgia. I also mentioned that a good spot would be here locally here with St. Louis, but we have to see. And just try to think what also is the next step here. Because remember, when once they announce these franchises, they have to hire coaches, front office personnel, also get to know the owners. Because so far, the listening to the interview with the Wilkes Barre owner, who is part of a boxing promotion, which is kind of almost similar because you're in those arenas and scheduling a fight, and in a way an arena football game isn't a fight in a way. And what was that owner's name? No, oh, Matt Rowland, there we go. So and he was, and like I said before in my previous interview, seems like a very humbling guy, and hopefully they get a lot more owners, but it's not a bad idea to have different types of personalities and not just have the same one because like for example the Orlando Predators owner is what I would call loud, like both in fashion and just personality, but in a good way, not a bad way, in a good way. And it's just going to be interesting to see what Arena Football 1 does here, and hopefully this is a sign of bigger and better things because after what happened last year of the season of Arena Football League, I hope to not see that again because even though during the 2024 season, that was one of the worst things, though I've seen worse because we actually saw teams that in other leagues go away. Mississippi Raiders went away when once you saw their turf field was just like a mixed match of pieces that didn't fit and they were gone. Then, of course, in the Arena Football League, half of the league went away within weeks and don't know if we'll ever see them again. Of course, if I remember correctly, I think the Black Bears arena is still owed money. Or was it? Hold on, not that one. Yeah, I think it was that one. And of course, everyone recalls they have that like cattle ranching type of equipment that did not go well at cattle ranching gates, didn't work it well. Well, that's all I have for this evening, but there'll probably be a lot more, and not to mention the first show of October and get more to the fall season. Thank you for joining me this evening of Arena STL on the Field Sports Network. See you all next week.